Hi, my name is Ellen Musselman, and today I'll be discussing the delayed copying method from Nations Text, and that is highlighted on page 102. So the domain that this method focuses on is writing, and specifically writing fluency. The age for this method could be any age, and the level would be probably about high beginner, students who are just starting to write and wanting to look at writing fluency specifically. And the group type for this specifically would be students who come from an L1 that might have a different writing system than English. So they need to practice writing English phrases and just seeing and writing how English sentences are formed, which might differ greatly from their L1. So a basic overview of this method is, and it might differ a little bit from Nations Text, but the idea is that a teacher might display a paragraph on the board in front of the class, and that could be a simple routine, a simple paragraph, or a longer, more complex passage, depending on what level the students are at and what the teachers think that the students can handle. So the teacher would display that paragraph and go through it a couple times together, and then the teacher would display one sentence at a time or one phrase at a time, depending on what the class can handle at that time. So they would display one phrase or one sentence for the class and give the class a couple seconds to read that. And then the teacher would take away that sentence or phrase while still requiring the class to look up at the board for a few seconds. And then the teacher would say go, and the class would look down and write what they saw or what they read on the board. So forcing the students to kind of pause and read it, and then wait and hold it in their mind for a few seconds, and then transcribe what they had read in written form. So that's a basic overview. The materials would just be a whiteboard, a projector, a simple PowerPoint that the teacher had prepared, and then writing utensils and paper for the students. And the time frame could be different depending on how complicated or long the paragraph is, but you'd be looking at about a 10-minute activity. And then, so the passage can be taken from a book. It would differ for the level of students. Again, it could be more complex English or just simple sentences, depending on where the students are at. So you could just take a passage from a book that's of an appropriate level. So a book I'm reading right now, this is an example. You could say, Raj and Ruby are coming for Thanksgiving on Friday. Raj emailed Daniel and agreed. They'll arrive on Tuesday, 2 days before the holiday, so Daniel and Mira spend the weekend preparing. They wash the linens in the guest room and set up the fold-out in Daniel's study. They clean the house, Mira the kitchen and living room, Daniel the bedrooms and bathrooms, Gertie the dining room. So that's a more simple paragraph, kind of just listing in simple sentences things that were done. But it could be a more complex sentence depending on the level of the students. So again, they would display that line for line or phrase for phrase, and the students would read it and then have to wait and pause for a few seconds and then write what they saw. And this kind of helps the student with memory, so that they're not just copying word for word. Read a word and then write it, read the next word, then write it, because that's not helping them understand English phrases and how we form sentences in English. It would just be copying word for word. So this rather makes them hold the whole phrase in their mind for a few seconds and then transcribe that. So it helps with forming words and letters and phrases in English, and then transferring it from reading it and then into writing it. So there are multiple facets for this activity, and many benefits to the method. So that's a basic overview of the delayed copying method from Nation's text.